Welcome to Wine and Real Estate, the podcast where we drink wine, we have fun, and we learn about real estate investing. Real estate investing is so much more than just buying buildings. It's about building relationships, building your dreams, building your dream lifestyle, customizing your life. What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? It's much more than money. It's more than getting rich. It's a different type of wealth. It's the wealth of time, the wealth of freedom. And now let's get to the wine and the real estate. This podcast is brought to you by Streetwise Mortgages. Streetwise works both with clients who are starting out on their investment journeys, as well as sophisticated investors with multi-million-dollar portfolios.
Hi, I'm Dalia, founder of Streetwise Mortgages, and today I will share with you a tip on how to get the best value for a property you're looking to refinance. Number one, avoid system appraisals. While system appraisals may be cheaper or free of charge, they can only support the value based on the sold comparables in the area. They do not take into consideration any unique characteristics about your property. Therefore, in my view, it is best to go with an actual appraiser's visit, even if it costs you a little bit more. Number two, if you have renovated or improved the property, share with the appraiser or your mortgage broker an executive summary that includes the following: before and after pictures, a list of the work done, how much you spent, any permits, and any sold comparables within the past 90 days that your realtor can provide. And finally, number three, working with a mortgage broker will give you better leverage in resolving any value discrepancies with the appraiser versus working directly with the lender. If you're looking to refinance a property or wish to develop a complementary financing roadmap to grow your portfolio, our team at Streetwise Mortgages will help you unlock your possibilities. Email us at info@streetwisemortgages.com. Cheers to your success.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine and Real Estate. We're going to talk about beer and real estate with none other than Diane from Integris Law. So, Diane, welcome. I'm really excited to learn about beer. Maybe you'll convince me to switch. I am going through a 3-week fasting period with no wine right now. So maybe beer is okay. It's not wine. So.
Well, thanks, Francois, for having me. And yes, I feel like it's in line with a lot of folks do dry January. So
yes.
Yeah, you're on trend.
There you go. For me, I'm Christian, so it's part of a longer 21-day pray and fast. And what I do is no dessert and no wine. So that's a big pain for me. I think I'd rather have no food and some wine and dessert. But anyway.
Fair enough.
So welcome to the podcast. Could you give our listeners a bit of an overview of who you are and what you drink and what you do for a living?
Absolutely. So I will admit, I brought a glass of water today because I'm I'm watching what I'm drinking too this month. So my name is Diane Ulman. I'm the co-founder of Integris Law. Our head office is in Oakville, but the point is we're real estate lawyers that can help clients across Ontario. So as long as the property's in Ontario, we can absolutely help. My specialty is mostly residential real estate. It's working with private homeowners, but also investors as well.
Very cool. And before we came on air, you told me something interesting. I started asking, do you get into corporate law and setting up corporations and things like that? And I really liked your answer, if you don't mind sharing it as well.
Sure. So we just basically had to kind of draw a line, and we chose to kind of stay in the real estate area and not diversify and be too much of a generalist. So we're very much focused on residential real estate. My business partner also does some wills and powers of attorney, but the vast majority of our practice is residential.
And that's a great way of doing business. If you think about it, in many other areas, people are hyper focused and super successful. So I'm sure your clients enjoy as well, like expert service, because that's all you do. So real estate goes like it must be easy. Can you walk us through maybe the process of like a purchase with Integris Law?
Absolutely. So usually it starts with an introduction. So we are a lot of our business is by referral, which is obviously the highest compliment. So we reach out to the new potential client, we introduce ourselves, and at that point they've either bought or sold a property. In this scenario, they've purchased a property. The first step is for us to get a copy of the agreement of purchase and sale. Once our office receives that, the new client, we onboard them by sending them a welcome email, which kind of lists all the information we need from them, everything from their IDs to their date of birth to are they planning on living at the new home, or is this an investment property? And that starts things off. The key thing is we want to set the expectation of like how the timeline of the deal is going to go.
Yeah.
A lot of the closings have 30, 60-day closings. In our emails, it says, hey, reach out to us anytime, but just so you know, a lot of the action on the deal happens in the last 1 week, 10 days before the deal, and that's when you'll really start hearing from our office. But reach out in the meantime anytime you'd like.
And it is kind of hard because I've purchased and sold many properties. And at the end, I mean, you need to calculate those numbers you guys need to get from the bank if there's a mortgage, property taxes, and there can even be adjustments after the fact. So that makes it hard. So that's why you don't prepare months in advance. And transactions, like you mentioned, are getting really short now, 30 days, 60 days. I remember when I reserved places like 6 months ahead. Oh yeah, we're closing next winter, and so you had lots of time. Now, what's a typical timeline now?
Oh, I would say it's 30 days. It's something along those lines.
Wow.
I truly don't remember the last time I've seen a 6-month closing. The only exception is if somebody's buying a new build directly from a builder, and the closing might be 2 years away, but that's the only exception I'm seeing.
Cool. And then tell me about yourself as an investor. So again, before we came live, you mentioned you're starting to do a few things, and that sounded interesting.
Yeah. So in my personal life, so my fiance and I, we did buy a detached home in southern Burlington, and we are currently in the process of converting the basement into a legal second unit. So that's been eye-opening, because I will admit, I just, as like a personal person, I love learning about real estate investing. I listen to a ton of podcasts, and hearing about the process. I've heard the process for years, but until you're doing it, until you're going through the process of getting the drawings, submitting to the city, and get the reality of what the timelines are actually involved, it's kind of, you can't just like listen to it. So we're definitely in the thick of it right now, and we're hoping construction will start in March.
Wow.
So about 6 weeks or so, 8 weeks from now. And then also we're starting to get into the private lending side. Personally, we're using our RSP money, and because the returns on private mortgages are much better than what a mutual fund is doing, for instance. So we're starting to get in that. Yeah,
and it's good. I find that when you lend your RSP money as well, it kind of opens doors to other investment strategies, investors, and things, because you are lending for the most part to investors. I don't like, sometimes you lend to other people, but it's usually for an investment purpose. It's not your primary residence. So what's the process? A lot of people hear about that RSP money, lending it out. Sounds illegal to a lot of people that don't know about it. How is that done? You're a lawyer, so I guess it's legal.
Sure. Okay, so from the personal side, from the client lender side, it was relatively easy. We just transferred our RSP money from the major bank we had it sitting with in just a regular registered account. We transferred it over. We happened to be working with Olympia Trust on this. And then from the lawyer's perspective, some of the requirements and limitations are that whenever a private lender is lending out their money on mortgages specifically, it has to be to a stranger. So for instance, I couldn't loan my RSP money to my brother and give him a mortgage. It has to be a stranger. If there's an agreement of purchase and sale, so the borrower we loaned to, they happen to be purchasing a property, so there's an agreement of purchase and sale that has the value of the home, like the market value. If the borrower already owns the home and they're just looking to refinance, there has to be an appraisal done. So there are some limitations. Olympia Trust, for instance, has a checklist of what they require. So it's not a total free for all. It's definitely very regimented.
Yeah, and I've just been through that this summer as well. And if it's over 50,000, you need 2 lawyers. If it's under 50, is it just one with Olympia? I don't think I've ever tried.
So with Olympia specifically, I'm not sure about the rules if it's under a certain amount, but just generally when it comes to private lending, and if it's over a value 50, and I believe it's actually changing to 75,000.
Oh, good.
If it's exactly, but in those smaller values, the same lawyer can represent both sides, but for the most part, I would say independent legal advice, like the one lawyer will insist that one of either the borrower or the lender will get it, at the very least, independent legal advice, and may even insist on 2 lawyers being involved. It protects everybody, that nobody's pressured into the deal, that everybody understands the terms of the mortgage.
So is that something that you get into as well on the residential side, doing private mortgages, RSP mortgages?
Yes. Yeah. So absolutely. And it's actually my preferred and kind of most interesting favorite side of my practice is working, for the most part, I'm working with a number of real estate brokers who are specializing in investor clients, either on or lender side. And then I'm working with their clients doing the registration of the registered mortgages. And these are potentially cash deals, or the lender is using funds from a line of credit they have access to. So the point is, it's cash that isn't in a registered retirement savings plan. It's not in a TFSA, for instance. It's just cash that they have available.
Cool. And do you get into promissory notes? That would be unsecured funds. Is that something you do? I know that's a lot more risky, but some people do it.
So promissory notes are kind of interesting because one of the reasons why they're riskier is that they're not actually registered on the title of the home.
Yeah.
So promissory notes do not technically need a lawyer involved at all. You're basically giving an IOU to somebody saying, I promise to pay you back a certain amount of money. So it's something that our office doesn't deal with too much, only because I'm not involved.
The trust level.
Yeah, the trust level, but also because it's not registered on title. So that promissory note money isn't going through my trust account, it's not getting registered on title. So it's something that our office doesn't deal with too much.
Yeah, it may be more if someone wants a form. Do you have a sample or something that I guess you could provide or review? But yeah, for the most part, it's registered, usually mortgages and things like that. So cool. And then, so what do you do for fun, Diane?
Oh man, so in the pre-COVID, before times, all of the fun it generally surrounded travel. That was a big one.
Oh wow.
So yeah, backpacking a number of countries. So really getting to know certain cultures as much as you can as when you're backpacking for a month at a time, right? So, but absolutely love it. Really miss doing that. And then also, still playing volleyball, actually. Started in grade 7 and kind of carried it through. And that's definitely a love. And also it's become a big source of my social group as well.
Yeah, because you become friends. I mean, you spend so many hours. And are there leagues, like adult volleyball leagues? I guess there are. I don't know. But.
Yeah, absolutely. There certainly are. And I joined a co-ed volleyball league that was based in Port Credit, like the Mississauga area. There are many. So I've been playing with like co-ed leagues for about 15 years now, and absolutely have had a blast. Yeah. It's not just little kids that do weekend tournaments. It's the big kids too. Yeah.
Well, my daughter, funny enough, like she's 16, so she does competitive gymnastics, and at 16, usually you're an older gymnast. So she's in like pre-retirement, and then she heard about this league of old gymnasts that are like 16 years old and above. And anyway, she's like, "Oh wow, there's whole life after you retire from your sport, but you do it for fun. I'm like, yes, but I never thought you'd say that at 16, maybe more at
I
40 or
I was never that competitive in any sport. I just did
oh
it for kind
no.
of the social and the love of it. But I can't believe a 16-year-old is being told that, hey, you're aging out. Like I get it
Oh.
for gymnastics, but wow.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, 15 and 16, usually that's when they started having aches and pains, so they're in retirement mode. And it's really weird. It's like, oh man, I have to give up gymnastics. Well, you're only 16, but
Oh my
anyway,
gosh.
it's like anything in life, things
Yeah.
change.
You'll have
Um,
to switch over to parkour or something now.
yes, or coaching. So she's been
Yeah.
coaching people now, and there's a program for retirees, I guess. So she can start
Yeah.
lending her money as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Good stuff.
So Diane, going back to your house that you bought in South Burlington, do you live there? Is it a house hacking situation or
Yeah. So at the moment, we're not hacking a whole lot because there's nobody
no?
in the basement right now. The place was vacant. We just bought the house as a single family home. Yeah, we're living upstairs, and we're going through the process of finishing and legalizing the basement. But yes, the plan is to have a tenant in the basement, and then for this to turn into a full-on rental income property for us as we transition to the next home. But yeah, I had a certain timeline in mind, but I basically need to add 2 years to it. I feel like just based on how things are going.
Yeah, it's unfortunate with all the permitting and materials and contractors. It's hard, but at least you're living in it, so it's not like it's an investment property sitting there empty, vacant. That would be very scary. But
Yes.
the whole
Yeah.
house hacking, adding a basement suite, doing probably the BRRRR strategy to pull your
Yeah.
funds out, especially in Burlington, is excellent. It's going to be a money, like a wealth builder for years
Yeah.
to come. I spoke with one of my coaching student last night. He bought 2 houses in Brampton about 10 years ago, and you can imagine Brampton was very cheap, and now it's like the properties are close to $1 million each in only 10 years. So Burlington, you're starting higher. I'm not sure. Do you mind sharing your numbers for that property or?
Sure. So we purchased the home just so that the deal was papered, like the APS was written up. I think it was last May, so 8
Oh,
months
wow, a while
ago.
ago.
Yeah, we closed it in July, and then we started the process of it. We were always going to live here as our primary residence, so the timeline wasn't
Yeah.
too important. So we purchased it for $935. It's basically a 1,100 square foot detached raised bungalow, and again, like the 1,100 feet, it's basically mirrored. About 900 additional square feet are in the basement. So
Cool.
yeah, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, no, it's been a great reality check, honestly, just to be part of the project planning of it, just getting
Yeah.
a reality check on the timelines more than anything. We've got our budget is kind of on course for what we expected. It wasn't any of
Okay.
the expenses that were unreasonable. It was just the timeline involved. So it's been great, honestly, on the whole. It's made me a stronger lawyer because I can now appreciate what some
Oh,
of
yeah.
my repeat investor clients are going through. And I'm so impressed when some of the investors are like, yep, I'm in and out of a deal within like 4 months or 6 months.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, okay, you have got this locked down. Because yeah, it's taking us much longer.
Yeah, I was building those relationships as well, depending on where you're doing that. I'm in Ottawa. I know a lot of people that do the BRRRR strategy, and they have great contacts at the city hall, so they know exactly where to bring their drawings and things. So it speeds things up.
Yeah.
But for
Yeah.
you, it's good as well that you're doing it while still working full time. So you're creating that wealth building, and then you want to buy another house. And do you think you'll be tempted to BRRRR that next house as well, or?
You never know, but we've got to live somewhere. So at some point, somewhere's got to be our primary residence. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But again, like from the investor side, we're kind of starting out, just like, everybody's got to start somewhere. So we're just trying to be realistic about how quickly we can be moving through properties, because we do both have full-time day jobs that take the majority of our time. So.
No, I can imagine. I mean, that's hard as a lawyer and doing this and managing contractors, and it's a lot. Even if it's a general contractor, you still get calls. Oh, we got to move it 2 inches, which means the window needs to move. And anyway, things happen really quickly. In March, when you have the people in there, you'll get a lot of phone calls, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? What's new 2022? Do you have some other projects for your firm or yourself, or more volleyball maybe?
So with all the gyms closed, not a lot of volleyball is happening these days. But on the business side, from Integris Law side, we are fortunate enough to just have experienced a fair bit of growth over the past little while. So we're building our team more. We're streamlining our process to make the real estate process as smooth for our clients as possible. That's our main goal. We very much appreciate that there are a ton of real estate lawyers across Ontario. So it very much is a service business. We appreciate that. So we do try and stay in contact with our clients as much as possible. And that kind of speaks to that, even that very first email we sent to clients, just to let them know, you're not going to hear from us for, all of these weeks in between before the closing. You'll hear from us within the last, 10 days, 2 weeks, because that's where everything happens.
But it's reassuring to get that email, because I've dealt with other firms. You don't hear a word, no idea, do they even have the file? Like, at least acknowledging, yes, you're booked. We know your closing is X date. And that's perfect. Do you guys use systems like with some automation? I just dealt with a firm in Alberta, and I loved what they did. Like, they had a paralegal reach out to you with a form. You could submit documents there. It was really cool. Are you very high tech, or?
We try to be as much as possible. We are actually looking at some new software to transition from the software we're currently using for the real estate side to a more updated one. So that's in the works in the next 1 or 2 months.
Okay.
So we're investigating that. But for the most part, so we currently have something similar where there's an online portal that a client can upload photos of their driver's license and their passport and their most recent property tax bill, for instance. And they're able to do that any time of night. If they happen to get to it at 1 a.m, upload it then if that's convenient for you. No problem. We'll see it in the morning, kind of thing. So yes, we're very technology forward as much as we can be. As you can appreciate, real estate law in general is super old school. So there is there's some institutional resistance that we're kind of pushing against, but we do as much as we can, for sure.
Yeah, just the wording when you read the documents, sometimes I see that in many things, and everybody wants to correct it. I'm like, no, it is a word, but it's not used very much.
Yeah.
So just that weird old wording, and I've dealt with lawyers in English and in French. Same in French, even in Ontario, it's still very old-fashioned, very old terminology. But there is a reason for that. I guess it matches some sort of law book somewhere. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, real estate law is hundreds of years old. So there's a lot, again, I said institutional kind of resistance, it is so ingrained. So I view my role in a client meeting is translating all of those paragraphs that say, here to, forever with, all of these things, subject to, all of that stuff. What does that mean in regular modern English?
That's it.
And you just kind of break it down. No, we can't start changing, converting those paragraphs into modern English, but I can certainly explain to you what it means.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure you've stayed at hotels, but I don't know if you've ever had the sign on the doors in Ontario in a hotel room. It says something about if you have a horse and different things, and it's the law from 1880 or something, which shows, again, another really outdated law, but there must be a purpose. Maybe next time I should try bringing a horse and see what they do with it.
Yeah, where's the horse parking out front? Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
it. Oh, where do I find horse feed around here? But it's cool that it is evolving. Like I have seen now all this digital signing, which is really cool. Things are moving. It's still, the wording is fancy, but I guess it sounds very distinguished.
Yeah, I suppose, but honestly, for a lot of people, it just seems just too much redundant. All of these things. So
Yeah.
what does it mean for my regular day life? What kind of responsibilities, like when you're talking about a mortgage document, what responsibilities do I actually have here? Like, just basically give me the Coles notes of what 20 pages of documents mean. What does it mean to me today?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's it. And a question I have for you while we're talking about this, I spoke with another lawyer a while ago, and title insurance, that's something that comes up a lot. And there's some new things with, I think, Stewart Title is changing some rules. Do you have kind of a go-to title insurance that you recommend, or?
So truly, we happen to favor First Canadian Title. I've been working with them for years. But there are, I'd say, there are three main title insurance companies. There's a fourth in Ontario, and those would be Stewart Title that you mentioned, First Canadian Title, Chicago Title, and then Title Plus.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I'm not surprised there. It's actually offered through the Law Society, but it is the fourth title insurance company. For the most part, the policies of, I'll say, the three major ones, Chicago, Stewart, and First Canadian Title, they are very similar for most just residential deals. And the pricing is very similar. So if your lawyer happens to choose one or the other, it's not because you're not getting charged much more or much less from any of the competitors. They're quite similar. So because I work with First Canadian, I'm actually not too sure what changes Stewart might have in the background. But after this, I'm absolutely looking it up for sure.
Yeah, I read something somewhere. I'm like, okay, this could be interesting, but I'm not a lawyer, so scrolling. But there is something going on there. And then another lawyer mentioned Chicago had certain perks or additional clauses in their insurance. I also read a horror story in New Brunswick that's not related to you, but a lady bought a house that it was a garage that burnt. They fixed it into a house without permits or anything. And now title insurance does not cover that. But have you ever had like a horror story where you've been able to claim title insurance or heard about something to that effect?
So horror story for my clients, no. There have been
good. There you go. That's perfect.
And truly, I've been fortunate enough where on behalf of my clients haven't had to make title insurance claims really very often. There was one scenario where my client was the purchaser. After closing, as you mentioned, sometimes there's adjustments after closing. In this situation, there were some outstanding utility bills, and the seller just took off, never to be heard from again. Like, they just didn't even bother closing it down. So there were outstanding utility bills that were registered more on title. It wasn't to the old seller's name. And so it's something that and this can also happen for property tax as well. So fortunately, my clients, because we had reached out to the seller's lawyer a number of times, there was no response, but there was a record of us trying to resolve it. Ultimately, you go to title insurance. Title insurance did cover it on behalf of my clients. Just pay off the balance of those outstanding bills. And it's only because it affects title. If it was something like I don't know, if it was a Rogers cable bill, internet bill, title that doesn't affect the title of the home, and that wouldn't affect my client at all, but this would have. So title insurance was fantastic. They resolved it quite quickly.
Okay.
And what actually happens in the background, which I found out later, is in this scenario, it was First Canadian Title I was working with. They actually start a legal proceeding and track down the old seller and recoup the money. So, yeah. So, and we're talking about a couple $100. Like it was so silly that the seller just took off. But nonetheless, so fortunately, the point is I've had more minor after the fact issues, but nothing too major. But a more important kind of anecdote that I have heard of is there was a situation where it was father and son on title. Son, unfortunately, there was a falling out. Son sold the property. It was vacant land, so dad didn't notice, was the point. And basically, sold the property, and there was title insurance involved because it was title fraud from the father's perspective.
Yeah.
So title insurance, I don't know what company handled it, but title insurance handled that. So title insurance in Ontario is extremely important. If a client has a mortgage on a property, it actually is not optional. It's mandatory.
Yeah, it's a requirement.
Yeah, but it protects you against many things, including mortgage fraud and title fraud, which are very real risks.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, those were interesting anecdotes. One with your client, thankfully, it was very simple. I mean, a few $100, worst case, you'd survive. It's still annoying. But it's interesting to hear what it does, because you always see title insurance, $600 or whatever it is, and then you never use it. Like most insurance, you hope not to claim, because it is work and time and effort. But if you need it, it's there. And just like you said, it can be a requirement if you have a mortgage. So most people have mortgages.
Yeah.
So that's great. So Diane, I heard something about beer earlier. What have you, tell me about a nice brewery, something that I should try out?
Absolutely. Well, I think because before the recording, you and I were talking, and you were asking if I was kind of a wine fan or whatever. Yeah. And I said beer, and truly, I think it's because of all of the volleyball tournaments. We're not drinking much wine at those tournaments. No. It's always beer. So really, I enjoy some of the microbreweries that are kind of all over Ontario. One that I go to often, especially in the summer when it's cottage season, it's up in Muskoka. It's called Sawdust Brewery. So it's in Gravenhurst, and they just have such unique beers. Every brewery has either big hits or misses. I like the sours. So those are a good time. Yeah, they've got a guava sour in the summer.
Oh, cool.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So very different guava. I mean, that doesn't grow in Canada, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a fun time. And I know out in Hamilton, there was like a beer festival. This was, again, a couple of years ago, and you could have festivals, and it was really neat. They had so many different breweries from around the world, including like Japan and all this stuff. So very, very interesting flavors. Of course, not every one of them are to my taste, but fun to try out.
It is fun to try. Just like I tried, this is totally food related and not wine or beer. This recipe, I don't know if you've seen it on TikTok. It looks horrible, but it's actually good. So it's like spaghetti with green grapes and brie and some other stuff. They mix it all, and actually it's good. So anyway, but sometimes it could be bad. But that one was good.
Oh man, no. So I have not made that.
No grapes and brie and spaghetti. And I also, last night, my wife made me. It was red grapes and some sort of lettuce and rice and halloumi cheese. It was really good, and everything was warm. I'm like, warm grapes, but it was actually very good. So anyway.
Okay. All right. I like all of those things individually, just
together.
I'm not creative enough, I guess, to put those all together. Yeah.
I never would have guessed either. When she put that on the table, I'm like, okay, I'll try it, but I don't know what it is, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Diane. It's been a pleasure. What's the best way for our listeners to reach out to you when they have a deal they want to process through Integris Law?
Absolutely. So certainly you can look us up online. If you just Google my name, Diane Ulman, you will absolutely find me. But our law firm is called Integris Law, and our website is integrislaw.ca, and you can reach out to me there. My email address is diane@integrislaw.ca.
Excellent. Cool. Well, thank you so much, and can't wait to hear about your project when it's finished. You'll have to send pictures. I wanna see it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really had a great time.
My pleasure. Take care.